Hello again, I'm Matt with Mr. Matt Woodworks, and today we will be looking at some more found footage, possibly the last, from some old hard drives that I had. This project comes back from 2019-ish, and it was a project where I wanted to build something with materials that I already had on hand. That was going to be the rule for this. No going to the store for any extra lumber, screws, wall hangings, or anything else that I was going to need. I had this mirror. I got this thing back when I was in college, and it's been sitting in a closet ever since we moved into our first house back in 2010. I also had this stack of Barnwood sitting outside of my shop, so a giant Barnwood frame for that mirror seemed pretty obvious. But before we get started, go ahead and give that like button a little tap for the YouTube algorithm, or you can smash it or explode it, whatever works for you, works for me, just the same. This wood had been sitting outside my shop for about a year at this point already, and if I'm being honest, I haven't used any more of it since this was shot back in 2019. I really need to do something about my wood hoarding problem. I still have pallet wood. From a project that I did back in 2018. I don't know why I do this myself. I need to get rid of all this stuff. Anyway, I found a few pieces I thought would be good enough to flatten out and create the frame, so let's travel back in time to September of 2019 and get this project started. So today we are going to be building a frame for this mirror here. I've had that thing since college, and it's just been sitting in the backs of closets for a long time. The edges are kind of chipped, but not past the bevel, so I think we can still do something with it. Also, I've got this old Barnwood here that came off of a barn just a few minutes up the road, and it's also been sitting outside my shop for the last year and a half, 2 years. So I thought it'd be cool to do a Barnwood frame around this mirror. This stuff is, I don't know if you can see this, it is pretty bent. A little bit twisted, but I think in shorter lengths we might be able to get something out of it. And if we have to, we'll double up the wood. We'll double it up to give it extra thickness and make it look extra beefy. On to milling. Again, this wasn't necessarily a new skill building experiment, but more an exercise in decluttering a couple spaces and only using materials I had on hand. Like I said before, no getting more screws, no fancy wall hangers, more on that in a bit, and only finish that I had in my shop already. All right, so here's where we need to make some decisions on which are going to be the side pieces and which are going to be the top pieces. We're not going to do miter joints, we're going to do butt joints. So the pieces are going to come together like that. Also, we're going to be using some pocket screws. And to all the woodworking purists out there that hate pocket screws, using pocket screws is not real woodwork. I get it. Go ahead, leave all the hate down below in the comments. So on the router, what we're going to do now is cut a channel for the mirror to rest in on the back. And if we line these edges up here, that's about how much we're going to cut out. About 5/8 of an inch along there. So we need 5/8 of an inch cleared here, all the way down. So what we did was made a little mark it in here, and that way when we run it over the router, we'll know to start on the inside of this line and work our way down. And that way we don't have a channel poking out through the sides there. I'm using a French cleat to hold this on my wall. If you don't know what a French cleat is, it's a super simple way to hang things using two boards cut at 45 degrees. One piece is screwed into the wall, the other piece is screwed into the back of whatever it is you're making, and then they lock into each other, staying secure yet mobile. Either way, it's a super cool and easy way to hang things for sure. So now we've got our frame built. Now I lost a lot of wood thickness when flattening these boards, which was no surprise, so to stabilize it a little bit more, I added some supports around the edges. The top one being our French cleat. With support pieces being the same width as the French cleat, the mirror will hang and seat snugly against the wall all the way around. Now these support pieces were bowing within moments of cutting them, which tells me there was a ton of stress built up in these boards. I could not get them to flush up at the edges, so I attached them in place where the center of the bow sat against the edge of the mirror, and then I went back with a flush trim bit in my palm router and flushed up all of the edges. Flushed it, flush, flush. From there, I gave the whole thing a good sanding, but made sure I didn't overdo it to preserve a little bit of that oak barnwood charm. I used an oil urethane mix to finish the frame and had just enough for a couple coats. I was super pleased with the tones this finish brought out in the wood. To secure the mirror in place, I made a handful of small brackets. These were nothing more than 1/2 inch thick rectangles that could be screwed into the back of the frame to hold the mirror tightly into the channel I routed out earlier. And just like that, a framed mirror. A very heavy oak barnwood framed mirror that cost me literally nothing except for a few hours of time in my shop. This thing is heavy. Massive. Well, that about wraps it up for this thing. All we have left to do is take it inside and install it. The wall support half of the French cleat system was secured to the wall with a couple of screws in each stud. Why a couple? Well, it just seemed like a good idea at the time. The left edge of the wall support didn't quite make it to the next stud, but as you can see here with my strength test, this wasn't going anywhere. If it's strong enough to hold me, it's definitely strong enough for this mirror. To install the mirror, it was as easy as hanging it on the support. And that was it. The irony here is that the barnwood that was left over that I didn't use for this project is still sitting outside my shop, and the mirror is now hanging proudly in the closet that I was trying to get it out of. If you like this video and you haven't done so already, prove it to the world by hitting that like button. Also, if you found this video helpful or useful, I've got more videos out there and more to come, so hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to know when more videos just like it are coming out. You can also follow along on Instagram at Mr. Matt Woodworks, or check out my website, mrmattwoodworks.com, to see other projects that I'm working on that might not have made it to YouTube. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.